Unfortunately, it reverted to all green leaves. You should not be fertilizing your orchid when it starts to bloom. Look at the size of this plant. She's huge. Good morning, friends. How are you all doing? Today is Saturday, and for me that means houseplant maintenance day. I share a lot about balcony and container garden maintenance, but never really how that looks for my indoor plants. So for a change, I thought I will invite you to join me for a houseplant maintenance day. Generally speaking, I keep it really chilled, really relaxed. For me, that Saturday morning is that moment during the week when I can just unwind, relax, and spend some time calmly with my plants. And I keep my routine on a weekly basis, because this way it kind of helps me stay organized. I always make sure that it's Saturday if I can. Obviously there are some exceptions, but this way I know that, okay, last time I watered my plants or last time I fertilized my plants was 1 week ago. So that just kind of helps me stay organized and it helps me take care of my plants better. So I have a whole bunch of things to do, so without further ado, let's go and let's take care of some houseplants. Okay, so let's start with these potos. So here we have Cebu Blue, Neon, and Enjoy. I have one more, Snow Queen, but unfortunately it's not looking like much. I bought it recently and it suffered cold damage in the transport, but I actually ordered another plant from another vendor. So it's supposed to be delivered this week, so I'm really excited. So first I'm gonna just cut out any dead or damaged leaves, and then I'm gonna water and fertilize all of them. To make them grow lush and beautiful, you have to keep them on a drier side actually. They don't like to sit in wet soil. They prefer to really dry out in between watering. So I'm air layering this one. In my recent video, I shared with you a couple of really cool accessories that I use for my houseplants, and I shared with you this method of propagation, air layering. So that's what's happening here. They're all looking pretty healthy, not much to cut here. So to water my houseplants, I actually use the same fertilizers that I use in my garden. So I'm gonna be using Alga Grow and Power Roots. So just gonna add a little bit. Right now we are still in winter, but as I think I already mentioned, I fertilize my houseplants year round because they are just growing year round. And as long as your plants are growing, you can fertilize them. Obviously I cut down on fertilizer a little bit during winter because they are growing less, slower. So I use about half strength, more or less. I don't even measure. So just by eye. These are organic fertilizers, so there's less risk of over-fertilizing. They are more slow release form of nutrients. Just really make sure to saturate the soil. But as I said, then I wait for the soil to really dry out before I do it again. With smaller pots, I actually place the cup under to collect excess, to re-water other plants with it. So now I'm gonna just let them sit for a moment, let the water evacuate, and while the water is evacuating, I'm just gonna clean the leaves real quick, dust them off. I use these microfiber gloves. Dusting off your plants is really important, not only for the aesthetic reasons, to make your plant look cleaner, nicer, but it's actually really important for their health, because if you have a layer of dust covering plant leaves, not only that plant will have a harder time to photosynthesize, but also dust can be really sticky and this can block the stomata in plant leaves, so those small holes, small openings in plant leaves that are responsible for gaseous exchange. So it's actually a really, really important maintenance task. Now a couple of begonias, maculata that used to be enormous. I chopped it recently and it's growing super fast again. And then a couple of Rex begonias, Fedor Macarena and Hugh MacLachlan, that used to be a really gorgeous begonia, but unfortunately it died when I went on holidays, as per usual. A lot of my plants die when I go on holidays. So generally I prefer to have my begonias in terracotta pots. I made an exception for this one. I wanted to give it a try in plastic pot and it grows okay, but I think I will eventually transplant it into a terracotta pot. Plants just grow healthier when they're in terracotta pots. So during like fall winter season, I usually fertilize my plants about once a month. But now that we are coming more towards spring and the plants are more actively growing, I will fertilize them about once a week. But here again, it really depends on the fertilizer that you use. I use an organic fertilizer. So as I said, it's more of a slow release form of nutrients, more gentle form of fertilizer. If you use mineral fertilizer, you have to be more careful to not burn your plant roots. So my calathea and my African violets, they are in self-watering containers. It's kind of, both of them have a little bit different system of self-watering. Here we have a terracotta pot that is sitting in a bowl of water. And here we have a wicking system. So normally I just come here and I water them and refill those water reservoirs whenever I see they are empty. But it's also a good thing to every now and then to take them to wash those water reservoirs to make sure that there's no nasty stuff developing inside of it. I'm really happy with this African violet. It's been, I think, a couple of months now since I repotted it, and it starts to bloom again. When I repotted it, it was in full bloom, and it was just so sad to cut back all of those beautiful flowers, but there are plenty of new flowers developing, so that's really lovely. I just love African violets. Like, look at the difference between this clean leaf and this dirty leaf. Like, that's a shame. I think it's been more than 2 weeks since I dusted it off last time. With African violets, you gotta be careful to not wet the leaves, because then they look like this. They look like they are burned. Okay, just gonna let it drain. So obviously not all of my plants require maintenance on a weekly basis. Some plants require maintenance every 2 to 3 weeks. And for example, this orchid, as you can see, it's about to bloom. And I'm not an expert in orchids, but someone who is shared a really cool tip with me. He said that you should not be fertilizing your orchid when it starts to bloom. So that's funny, because that's the contrary to what we do with other plants. Once they start to bloom, we start to fertilize them so that they have even more nutrients and energy to produce more flowers or to bloom abundantly. And with orchids, he says that if you fertilize them when they are flowering, the flowers will fade quicker. So if you want to enjoy your orchid blooms for a longer time, you should stop fertilizing them the moment they produce flower buds, so at this stage. And then once they are done blooming, that's when you start to fertilize them again. So that's a technique that I follow, and as you can see, it works, because it is the second year that I have this orchid and it rebloomed beautifully, so I'm really happy with it. Okay, a couple of succulents now. I have some more in the garden that I overwinter outdoors, some sedum, some aloe, but indoors I have a string of pearls, a variegated string of pearls and variegated string of hearts, and this Haworthia zebrina. So succulents, they prefer dry soil, so I water them maybe like every 3 weeks. This string of hearts needs water a little bit more often, but the rest every 2 to 3 weeks, and they are fine. It's better to keep them on a drier side than on too wet side, because then they will rot. I also have some cacti, but cacti, I don't water them at all during winter. They overwinter completely dry. Now these two sansevierias definitely need to be repotted. I repotted them in 2 large containers, I think. I would prefer to have them in smaller pots and more kind of like tightly packed. But for the moment, I don't have suitable containers for them. I need to find some smaller plastic pots, because they are in plastic pots actually. Because then I can place them in these more decorative baskets. Oh goodness, they are pretty heavy at this point. Okay, here I have my Oxalis triangularis that is in dormancy, but I'm not sure if this plant is alive, because I left it outdoors when it was -8°C, and Oxalis triangularis is not very frost hardy. So I brought it indoors a couple of days ago. I don't see any new growth just yet, so what I want to do is just kind of dig in the pot and see if the corms are alive. I found one here. I don't want to pull too hard, because if they are rooted already, I think they are. Oh yeah, there are some roots. And They seem fine, they seem nice and firm. So now I'm just gonna water them, just plain water, no fertilizer yet, just to let them know it's time to wake up. Just gently. Okay, now so just really quickly, let's go through all of these plants up here. Okay, so now I have this Oxalis volcanicola plum crazy, and it's such a beautiful plant, but unfortunately it reverted to all green leaves. And just before it reverted, I managed to take one cutting of that last remaining variegated part, and I put it in a glass of water and it produced some roots now. So I would like to repot it separately, and hopefully I can regrow variegated oxalis from that one single cutting. So today I'm gonna be repotting it into season cuttings potting mix, and once it grows a little bit bigger, I will repot it into a proper potting mix suitable for oxalis plants. Okay, next, this monster, Tradescantia Zebrina, is just getting out of control. Look at the size of this plant. She's huge, but I just cannot chop it. Like, it's so beautiful, I just can't. I just have to let it grow. But, truth be told, it is getting pretty enormous. Like, look at this, it's reaching the floor. There's usually quite a lot of dead stems behind. So really important to clean it all up, so that the plant has energy to produce new fresh stems. And if it happens that you cut nice and healthy stems, you can just cut them like that, put it in a jar or in a glass of water, propagate it, and then plant it inside the pot. And then you will get that fuller and more bushy look on your Tradescantia. I'm also propagating a couple of plants at the moment. I like water propagation. It's kind of no maintenance propagation. You just stick a bunch of stems in a glass of water and wait for the roots to develop. But it is really important to change the water regularly to prevent any nasty stuff from developing. So that's what I'm gonna do. So Irisine Herbs TI, a couple of Sansevierias, and more Tradescantia Zebrina. I was trying to propagate that cutting that I cut off from my variegated Monstera. It's been in the water for like a month now and nothing happened, so I think we can call it a fail. Okay, and 3 last plants. If you guys lost the track of all of these plants already, I can totally understand. So we have 3 plants. They are not doing the best. We have Syngonium Milk Confetti, my carnivorous plant that I actually forgot about because I placed it like super far behind my Tradescantia, so I let it dry out. I mean, it will still bounce back, but I probably shouldn't do it again. And then this Chlorophytum, for some reason, I mean, it grew really well for me. I mean, it still grows really well, but recently I don't know, maybe it just lacks a little bit of light because it's pretty dark in here during winter. So usually I place it on my balcony during summer so that it can catch a bit more light, so maybe that's the problem. For my carnivorous plant, what I usually do, I fill a glass with water, I let it sit for a few days, and then I water my carnivorous plants. It's not a good idea to water them with a tap water. I also never fertilize them because that's what's recommended for them. They don't need rich soil. But today I'm gonna make an exception because it's bone dry, so I really need to rehydrate it. So I'm gonna use tap water, but as I said, usually I don't do it. I just let it sit in a bowl with water, let it rehydrate for like 30 minutes and then I put it back under grow lights. So we have a whole bunch of dried stems. Usually, you know what, I'm gonna just cut them all out because they are really dry. So this way the plant will have more energy to produce new fresh ones. I have another carnivorous plant that is on the balcony. It's in dormancy right now, but generally they are quite high maintenance plants. Okay, and that's it, we're done. These are all of my houseplants at the moment, and this is what I do every single Saturday morning. Usually I can get it done under 30 minutes. Today obviously it took 3 times longer because I was stopping and chatting with you guys about all of these plants, but usually it doesn't take a lot of time at all. But yeah, this is it. Hope that you guys enjoyed seeing how I take care of my houseplants. Thanks so much for watching, and we will see each other in the next video.